So it's a few minutes past the hour, so it's just so nice to see all of you again. We'll follow the same format as usual. I'd like to give you an update on the work of the board and myself as chair over the period since our last meeting, which was 2 months ago. Because of being summer in Canada, I had some holiday vacation periods, so it was a less busy time for me. But on the other hand, I know Rima and Josema have been both working very hard to keep things going, and this is their busy period leading up to our annual meeting. So I'll give you a quick update, and then I'll hand it over to Rima for any additional comments that she has from the perspective of the Secretariat. As usual, in the second part of the meeting, we'll have a roundtable because I'm always anxious to hear about what's happening in your situation. You can talk about anything you want, of course, but the theme I thought of for this one is the strategy for consulting in this decade, in the 2020s. So 2020 and 2021, we've not been off to a great start, but all of the forecasts that I see from analysts is that consulting will pick up and grow even more quickly in the coming decade. So I'm curious from your perspective, either from the Institute or from your personal practice, what's happening, and we can share information in that way. So in terms of the update, it has been, these are always, to me, very interesting times because this is where all the work during the year comes together and we get to report this to our delegates. So, our August board meeting was focusing in on the key subjects that we need to bring forward. And then we'll have another board meeting in September where we finalize all of the documentations, which will be going out at the end of this month to all delegates for the annual meeting. So I'd have another one of these updates, which will be my last. I can't believe it's been 3 years already, in October. And in October, that will focus in on the board meeting and any questions that you might have, and just to help us all get prepared for that session. In terms of some of the key areas that I wanted to bring you up to date on that we're working on, the first is that from the perspective of ICMCI, things have changed a lot over the last decade. We now have a formal secretariat in place, which provides guidance, support, and coordination to all of our international activities, but also support to the institutes. And as a result of this, there's been an increase in the maturation of our organization. And with my work in governance and not-for-profits, it's quite clear that organizations go through different stages in their maturity. And as that happens, the relationships between the governance of the organization, which is the board, the management and operations, which is the executive director and the staff, and the committees, which are partly recommending policy, but also partly operations in terms of helping to implement decisions, starts to change. So we did agree at the board that we will have a review of governance of ICMCI. As past chair, beginning in October, I'll be leading that initiative. So just to let you know that's coming. It'll be focused on ICMCI and our global network, but I think there might be some findings and some insights that would be helpful to institutes as well. The second major area of activity is around an initiative in the UK. Peter, you'll be familiar with this one, which is around a new award which has been piloted and now launched, which is the Chartered Management Consulting Award. Always from the perspective of ICMCI, our vision is to help advance the profession of management consulting. So any new advancements in that area are always welcome. On the other hand, we have to figure out how that meshes in with all of the work of all of the other institutes around the world. So I've been very grateful to my colleagues in the Institute in the UK that we've had quarterly, sometimes monthly meetings to keep each other up to date on what was happening and to understand the Chartered award and how it's going to be implemented. So the question before us, though, is if someone in one of your countries, Brazil or the United States or Finland, finds out about this new award that's being offered in the UK, and they say, yeah, you know, I'd like to be a chartered management consultant, and they contact the Institute in the UK to do that. What is the answer? What are the implications for the other institutes? And we know there's full willingness to work what that will be. And we've created a working group between some of the key players in the UK and at ICMCI to work that through. And that work will happen this fall so that we can keep everyone fully up to date. So I'm looking forward to that. The third thing I wanted to update you on is our bylaws. I think I reported to you at our last meeting, which was 2 months ago, that we were having an issue with our bank. From the perspective of the bank, if you could think of a money laundering scheme that someone would create, they would have an organization in one country, a virtual office in another country, and membership in all of these other countries, and transfer funds willy-nilly around the world. And that just creates all kinds of compliance issues for a bank to deal with. And the number of funds that we actually move through are not that great in terms of most global organizations. So our current bank in the Netherlands has decided that it's more than they want. So they've asked if we could find another bank to deal with. So our decision is that we will work. We'd want to have a banking relationship in Switzerland, where we're formerly based. And in order to do that, we need to establish a formal representative who is resident in Switzerland, who would act under the direction of the board to do that. And surprisingly, we went to our bylaws to do that. We found that because of a change which was made in 2018, when we brought in the new terminology, an inadvertent change in some of the words removed the authority from the board to do that. So we have to come to the delegates to have that resolution in place. We'll do that in September, and all will move forward. So I think I'm at our meeting in October, I'm sorry. So all will move forward, but I wanted to alert you that this is coming forward. It's something that the board should have been able to do. But because of the current wording, we do need the delegates to agree on that. And at the same time, we would like to fix that error. When you get the papers at the end of this month, it will give you all of the information about why that needs to be, and some of the wording changes that we want to make in the bylaws in October in order to be able to move this forward. In addition to that, as we looked at the bylaws and as we talk about our strategy and as we listen to the institutes and the role that you expect from ICMCI, we do realize that the bylaws are quite constrictive in terms of what ICMCI can do to really promote and work globally to support the work that you are doing nationally. So we will create a working group of the new board starting after October to look into this and to consult with institutes and to give you feedback about some changes to the bylaws that we think may be more helpful. So there's lots more information coming from this. I don't want to take all of my time talking to you today, but I just wanted to give you insights into those two aspects of it. The third thing, the fourth thing I wanted to report to you is around future meetings 2022 and onwards. We had hoped that for this meeting in 2021, even though we needed to keep the annual meeting of delegates virtual, that the board itself could come together in one place so that we could support these meetings from one physical location with all of the directors in one room together. It's been almost 2 years since we've been able to do that. When we first started talking about it in the spring and early summer, in March through June, we thought it might be possible, but with fourth wave in many countries, it's just not going to be possible. So this will be totally virtual as it was last year. And we'll support you with videos and papers well in advance, and we'll have two separate sessions as we did last year. But in addition to that, we will have some information sessions between the two sessions. I'll let Rima talk about that in a bit more detail during her portion of this meeting. The reason I'm raising all of this is that from 2022 and beyond, we are still hoping that we will be back to face-to-face conferences and face-to-face hub meetings, but that the silver lining that Jafar, we were talking about earlier, is that this ability for people to attend virtually cannot be ignored. So we need to think about how we can create hybrid events where at an annual meeting of delegates, for instance, we do have everybody in the room, but we have others who are joining virtually, and figure out how to make this this a seamless experience. So I'm looking forward to that. It'll be a different way of operating, but it will expand our reach and our ability to collaborate with each other while still giving us the advantage of those face-to-face meetings. They are something that really do help us in a way that don't otherwise. We had our NSPC update in terms of the work of the nominations committee. I'm just delighted that we have a number of different applicants for directors this year. So delegates will have good choices in terms of who they would like to see to replace the board roles. And there will be an elections process, which Rima and Josema will be informing you about, where delegates can review a video of any of the persons for the delegates for nominations to become directors of the board, and also candidates for chair to replace me beginning with the October meeting, at the end of the October meeting. So I think that's going to be a very good process this year, and it does show some of the dynamism of our profession, that there are people that are willing to serve at the board level, and you as directors will have an opportunity to pick from the best of the best to represent you at the board. The last point I want to make before I hand it over to Rima is around the budget. So we do receive our regular reports from the treasurer. From the perspective of ICMCI, we're in good shape financially. This is primarily because a large part of our expenses have to do with travel, for assessments, for the annual meeting, for other kinds of meetings, for my own travel, for Rima's own travel, and so on. But of course, we have not had travel in this fiscal year. So we want to return that in some way to the institutes for their investment in their own institutes. So there will be a rebate, which the exact formula is being worked on right now by the treasurer, but against the 2021-2022 invoices, you'll see that there will be a rebate to share some of that excess revenue that we have as a result of lack of travel. It's not excess revenue, it's a lack of expenses. At the end of the day, it comes down to the same thing. Before we get into the round table, then Rima, I'll hand it over to you for other updates, and particularly around the annual meeting and the logistics of that, please.
Thank you, Dwight. Hello, everyone. Good evening, good morning, and lovely to see you all. Yes, like Dwight said, we have been busy with the documentation for the annual meeting. Like always, it will be sent out to all delegates 21 days before the event itself. That will constitute of all the documents that would need approvals and are related to resolutions as well. The event itself is taking place on the 14th of October, and we have morning and afternoon sessions. The day before, which is October the 13th, that's when we will celebrate the Konstantinos International Award. Like last year, we had to skip that. We didn't have our event, and we were unable to decide on it at the beginning of the year because of all the COVID issue. This year, we decided that we're going to hold it. If it ends up being virtual, then be it. And because of what's happening now, again, yes, it will be virtual, and it's going to be on October 13th. We had many projects. 11 of those were nominated to the finals, so you will know who the winners are on the 13th. Going back to the annual meeting, to the 14th of October, we would have two sessions, morning and afternoon. And in between, like what said, we will have what I've been calling the mini conference. We're going to have sessions with speakers. And the one thing that I didn't even mention in the morning session, Dwight, it's the fact that we're going to provide certificates of participation with that reflected in CPDs to each who attends and actually has the camera on, and we can see that they are there and not just connected. So we're going to introduce that as well, and we'll continue even if it turns into either physical or hybrid, like Dwight said. We would continue with those CPDs so that everyone knows that being part of ICMCI is really worthwhile. The voting on the NSPC, Dwight mentioned that as well. What's happening now is that the committee, by end of tomorrow, would decide on the nominees. On Monday, you would receive the announcement. It would include all the candidates for both the chair role and the board directors roles. You will have all the details, plus the voting itself will take place between the 1st and 8th of October, and that would be virtual like we did last year on the website, with the form being received by all the delegates for them to cast their votes. So that would be finalized during the 1st and 8th of October. The committee would look at all the results, and it will be announced at the annual meeting itself. As for the resolutions that we will be sending out in September, 23rd of September to be exact, either 23rd or 24th, to meet our bylaws, you would receive the list of resolutions that would need to be voted on. Last year, if you remember, we opened the voting right after the second session, and it was open for 45 days. However, from our bylaws, we can actually have the voting at the meeting, which is what we used to have in the previous years when we were all in one room. So what we're going to do this time around is open the voting right after the second session for 24 hours for delegates to cast their vote, and that would give us a much better time to actually have the board start working, to make sure that us as secretariat can continue with all the paperwork after the event in good time, and we don't end up wasting all the 45 days like we did in the previous years. Now, I know that too much will be happening on the 13th and the 14th, but I would beg of all of you to please be there, be with us, even though some sessions might be at awkward hours for some of you, but let's make it. Let's consider the 13th and 14th our travel days where we stay awake and join as much or as many of the events as you could, and let's make this a success regardless of COVID. Dwight, back to you.
Thank you, Rima.
Thank you very much. I'm sorry, I'd forgotten to take my computer off of alerts, so I put it on mute while I did all of that, and then I forgot to go back on again. So, so thank you very much for that update, Rima. It is exciting times always. There's just so much going on, and it's been more complex and difficult for many reasons, but there's been advantages as well. So I'm just pleased that we've all been able to keep things going. I know for you in the institutes, it's been even more difficult in terms of working with your members to try to figure out how to support them in these trying times. And we, from the same perspective, have been trying to figure out how to better support you as institutes in these trying times. So thank you, Rima and Husseima. So in terms of the reports, are there any questions or insights anyone would have for that before we start our roundtable?
No, not really.
Okay, excellent. Thank you very much. So we've got 40 minutes. That's a good time with this size. Just to remind everyone that this is recorded, because many who would like to be on the call for whatever reason aren't able to be here. We had more registrants than we have attendees. So this is posted on our YouTube channel so that others can catch themselves up on what's been happening at ICMCI, but also to hear your insights into terms of what's happening in the profession and what's happening in your country. So as usual, I do it kind of randomly. It's how Zoom has placed you on my screen so I can keep things in order. And Jafar, you're right on the top right-hand side of my screen after Hussein and myself. So I'll turn it over to you for your comments on the profession and where you think it's going this decade.
Well, thank you, Mr. Dwight. Actually, I still believe that we are still suffering a little bit from the results of the COVID. And I don't know whether all IMCs globally have the same problem or not, but we still have a very little enthusiasm with the ICMC, with IMC, with our members. So we are, fighting hardly to keep our members and not to lose, even though we try to have some more members, newcomers, and that's what we are trying to find out. I don't want to say that IMC is becoming too old, so losing people. We are still need young people to join as much as we can, and we have tried that hardly during this year. In fact, one of the problems that we are still having, in Jordan, facing the consulting businesses in general, is the kind of, let me say, public or general regulations, you know, to regulate this profession and to make sure that it is running, you know, within the ethics and the boundaries that we have in ICMCI and IMCs in Jordan. And maybe in the last meeting, I have mentioned that IMC Jordan, we are taking the leading part with a private-public dialogue with the government regarding how we can regulate this business or the consulting business. It looks as the process is a bit long, but I think we are on our way. We have had a questionnaire which we distributed to different companies, and we are looking for their problems in order to make, you know, a kind of discussions with the government if there are some regulations that we can, you know, make it to help the business in general. That is on the idea, the whole idea of consulting. We have met, you know, in the last few weeks, another situation, which one of them I have already raised before. And that was, you know, we still would like to see more cooperation between IMCs globally.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I have mentioned one time regarding the training courses and the workshops in particular, if it happened to be, you know, in one of the IMCs, and if it happened to be, for example, in English language, because maybe if they do it in Russians, we will not understand that. But say wherever that is a possible to overcome the language matter, we would like to be informed and known about it so that all our people can cooperate and can take part in such activities. And I think I wrote before a few days, and Rima maybe knows, she has got a copy of my email. I wrote to IMC Australia. And I was looking, you know, we have one or two guys who would like to take a training, you know, for the ISO 2070 declarations, you know, and we found that it's not feasible, you know, to hold a training for 2 persons. So I think one time Australia, they have advertised that they want to run a training. So I've sent to them a letter saying, you know, if you are going to make a training course, you know, for the people on the ISO 2700, we would like to take part in it. But today I have got an answer from them saying that they are unable, as they are only licensed by ICMCI to give such courses to management consultants in Australia and in New South Wales. I don't know, maybe, for example, if we run a course like this one in Jordan, does it mean that only it has to be for the IMC people in Jordan and we cannot take others? If that is the case, I don't know if there is a solution for this one to be considered, you know, that if one part of IMC, say in Australia or wherever, and others can benefit of such a situation, I hope, you know, that it will be considered in somehow by ICMCI, so that the license is not only to be for the people in that country, but if people from other countries would like to join, if that is possible. This is one thing happened, and I hope for that.
Yeah.
And one thing else also I have mentioned, and I received an answer for that, that if there is, for example, a course or training somewhere in one of our IMCs in a country, and they advertise fees, for example, for members and non-members. And I mentioned that in one of our meetings before, why not to consider, for example, all IMC members, whether they are in Jordan, America, Australia, wherever, to join such courses, you know, with the fees that applies to the local IMCs. I did mention that before, but I hope, you know, that we can make this more public, you know, or more formal.
And you did on that one, Jafar. I do remember, and I took that in because for training programs to offer each other member fees from institute to institute, I think is typically done. I think if anyone asks from one institute to another, that there would be a recognition of membership. But if I do dream, and I agree with you that it would be nice to formalize that more, so that there was the reciprocity would apply to member fees as well. But let me ask Rima to answer your question about ISO 2700 specifically, because that's a little different from all of the other training.
Yeah, and if I may add, with regards to the training, it's up to the IMCs to actually decide if they want to offer the CMC or member rate to other IMCs. It doesn't fall with the ICMCI, Dwight. It is the IMCs and how they agree and how much communication they have among them. As for the ISO, yes, if you remember, Jafar, when we first put that scheme on the table, we had the terms of reference. And the terms of reference had to make sure that IMCs do not end up providing or taking opportunities from other IMCs. We were aiming that each IMC would have its own trainers, provide the training to themselves, to their members, and grow from there internally in providing the training to either members, non-members, from consultants or even non-consultants and clients. So we wanted each IMC to make sure to cater for its own stakeholders, if I may call them that, simply because of the language barrier, number one. And number two, because we wanted to make sure that we have a proper what do you call it, register of all the certificates that are asked for by each IMC in order to make sure that we have the proper number of those who gained the ISO 20700 self-declaration status. Now, what you're talking about is a very specific situation where you only have 2 trainees who would want to attend the training. You have the option of either going to Australia, which is too far, and I believe even the time will not be that adequate. And if you want, we can tell them that they can accept those 2, but those 2, and it has to be on it has to be on situation by situation basis. But I believe that the more logical solution would be to have those attend the GI training, which is online. So there are 2 options for you, but they need the approval of ICMCI for the sake of the logs. Okay, and you can choose. I believe Dwight can even provide you more information about the online training by GI. To have them choose, have them look into it, but again, case by case basis, and it's not open for all. Okay.
Thank you, Rima. But let me just remind you, I think maybe I have sent you an email and talked to you before a week time. And we think, you know, that we are waiting when ICMCI will advertise, you know, for the
exactly, but that would be after the annual meeting, Jafar. We cannot do everything at the same time. So give us the time till after the annual meeting, and then we will address that public training for ISO.
So that's what we are trying to have, more than 1 trainer, you know, for this ISO 2700, as we don't want to be bound to 1 person or 2 only for the country. Anyway, thank you very much for the clarification.
You're very welcome. I appreciate that. And Rima, just for final clarification on this point, I understand ICMCI has no role in setting member fees and so on, but I think we could find with all the institutes could come together and make that agreement amongst themselves, and I think that would be a great thing. So anyway, let's move on now to Kim. Kim, you're next on the screen, so let's hear from Finland.
Okay, thanks. I would also want to comment the discussion previously. The common misunderstanding is that individuals are members of ICMCI, and that's not the case. So ICMCI do not know any persons as members, only the delegates, the directors. They are members of the National Institute, And it's a decision of the national institutes how they cooperate with other national institutes and their members. Our members in the ICMCI are only the national institutes, but we don't know the people behind there. So we cannot verify people to other institutes because we don't know them. So,
Yep, that's true.
And that is a very common question to ICMCI. Why don't you take care of the individuals? And the answer is that we don't know any individuals.
Yes.
Good. So about Finland, first of all, I have again noticed a very good, how should I say, task in the or work in the ICMCI, and that is of course the assessors. We have the Finnish assessment made by PK Lim, and through his work with the institute, with the new board and doing the assessment of the institute works, we got quite an enthusiastic institute about the CMC and developing the training and marketing it to the consultants in Finland. And I think that's really important when we talk about the small institutes where we get new board members and the transfer of the knowledge of ICMCI within the institute is very low. So and the how should I say, the obligatory connection point is at least once every 3 years when the assessor contacts the institute and starts talking about ICMCI and what it is all about and the value of the CMC while doing the assessment. So at least for Finland, I'm sure actually we will have the next CMC training now in the autumn, and I expect we will have good participants and we will also have a good development on the CMC program.
Wonderful.
So said that, then as I already mentioned, in at least Finland and I think in Europe, the businesses the society is opening means that the businesses are opening also. It's possible again to meet people. I'm traveling to Vienna at the end of this month. Since my last flight, it's 1.5 years. Imagine that. So it will be a completely new kind of experience, but at least Europe is opening, and that is a very good sign, I think, for all the consultants.
Wonderful, excellent.
That's
yeah,
my short
looking
brief.
forward to it. my luggage is starting to go into rebellion that we haven't pulled it out of the closet for so long.
Yeah, the same. I wonder if I know how to behave at the airports anymore.
Yeah, yes. Thank you very much, Kim. Christian, how's everything in Brazil?
Hello, everybody. Very nice to be here with you. Just to update everybody here, I just have a position in my institute of advisor, something like that, so I cannot comment officially on things regarding the institute. But I've just helped them to be ready to go through the assessment. That it's that 3 years assessment for the IMC Brazil, that it's should have happened in 2019, so it's late. But everything is ready, and there's already an assessor assigned, and so they'll probably be going through it by the end of the year. The rest of the institute is no news. It means it's difficult to bring people into to have increased membership. That's the main problem. As for the Brazil, the economy and the pandemic, the issue for the next year in Brazil will be political. There's a big political mess. On Tuesday, it was the national date for Brazilian independence, and huge rallies were organized through and all around Brazil. they were really huge in support of the president. And it's much more like it was in the United States last year before the elections, because in 2022 there will be elections. The problem in Brazil is that the Supreme Court has decided that they have the capability to govern Brazil. So they have taken some decision that has destabilized the equilibrium between powers, the executive, legislative, and justice. And this is going through, I think, the rest of the year and probably into the year into 2022 until the elections. And we don't know what's going to happen. The rest of Latin America, they're all in the hands of leftist regimes, many of them very, very dictatorships. Mm-hmm. And Brazil is trying to prevent itself to become one more. Yeah. So it's a big mess, really. Economy was gaining strength once again. Pandemic is pretty much under control. Deaths, a number of cases are slowing down. There is really slowing down. They have slowed down much. There was a peak through March and April that has already gone down to the levels it was last year, by at the same time last year. So there's some people saying that there may be another peak starting by the end of September. Nobody knows really what's going to happen in that thing. And economy recovery will depend on politics. It was really optimistic. They were estimating a 5% growth for the year, but nobody knows if it will be possible or not with this political situation, environment. So that's more or less what's going on this side of the world.
Thank you, Christian. I appreciate that insight. It's always good to hear these things you see on the news, but it always tends to be so sensationalist on the news. But I know there's lots happening in Brazil, so thank you. Gloria, let's move north a bit into the United States. How are you?
I'm doing well. I'm attending simply as a guest on behalf of roostec.com, so not representing IMC USA, of course. Mm-hmm. But I do have a question from Dr. Thomas and Dr. Lloyd Williams, who are also part of roostec.com. They are two of IMC USA's most active members, and they have made both written and verbal statements to RENA expressing their mutual desire to join and actively participate in more than one current ICMCI committee since April of 2021. And Dr. Thomas has reached out to existing members of those committees via Zoom chat during recent ICMCI events without getting responses. And they have not yet heard from REMA or any of the committee chairs about their desire to participate. And they would like comment from you, Mr. Chair, as to the next steps for them. Like, what avenue should they be taking in order to get more involved? They're clearly involved in IMC USA. I know that Dr. Gregory Thomas attends probably at least 80%, 85% of all chapter meetings in the US. So he's very well connected to IMC USA and would like to get more involved globally.
Okay, well, thank you.
And the same with Dr. Lloyd Williams.
We always look forward to involvement of all of our members from around the world. So following up on Kim's point, we work through the institutes to the members. So members of institutes aren't direct members of ours, but they do attend and participate in member committees, and that kind of support is always more than welcome. We do have a cycle which starts at the end of each annual meeting, and it's after that annual meeting, usually from November, December through early early January when we put out the call for nominations for people to be participating in committees. So it sounds like they're a bit outside of the cycle, and this would create an opportunity coming forward. So immediately after the annual meeting, once we know who the new directors are and have the liaisons in place to all of our committee work, then we identify vacancies and put out a call for nominations to all institutes. And then the institutes then forward that on to their membership, either through the newsletter or email, and let them know what the opportunities are. And then when there's a fit, the people can nominate for that particular committee, and then the chair makes the final decision. So it's a bit of a process, but because we're a global organization, we need to move through that. I know that there was a set webinar that was going to be hosted by the two people you mentioned, and just because of just press of duties, we weren't able to go ahead. So we had two scheduled, which we've decided to put off until after our annual meeting. So we will be rescheduling those for the fall. So I'm sorry for the sense of frustration. I do appreciate, though, that you raised the question and give us the opportunity to answer it in this form. And it's on tape, so you'll be able to show them the answer, at least in the tape version. Rima, you might want to add something to that.
Just one thing, and Gloria, the nomination should come from the IMC to us. So when the IMCs seek nominations according to vacancies that we have put out, it's the IMC who ends up recommending who for which vacancy on the committees. Okay.
One more step, which I missed.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. And I'm brand new. I just actually became an IMC member like in July. So
okay. Good. Well, welcome to the club. It's great.
Waving hello to my Canadian friends. I'm an expat living in the States. So
okay, excellent. Thank you very much. And speaking of Canadian friends, Chris, you're next up on my screen. Any comments for the group, please?
In terms of what's going on in Canada, or
yeah, what's going on in Canada, or your perspective of what's happening in the profession.
So yeah, right now in Canada, I'm not sure. I'm good to hear that everyone else has got COVID under control. Not so much in Canada at the moment. We're kind of, back into the COVID cycle right now. I just so you all understand the industry I come from the technology industry, and so I do management consulting in that area. And the demand for talent and technology right now in North America in general, I'm sure you're seeing this south of the border, Gloria, is pretty crazy. And so a lot of our clients are moving to more remote hybrid models where they're acquiring hard to find and expensive talent in other physical geographies rather than where their headquarters or offices are. And that's placing a lot of challenge in how you integrate in person and remote folks, because a lot of the talk is around hybrid, where you might be in the office Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, but there's not a whole lot of research around hybrid, or not a whole lot of reliable research around, or research that's not conflicting around how you actually have an organization that has in office, but also has remote folks, and how you bring those two worlds together. But yeah, we're seeing demand for just for reference. Actually, this is going to go on YouTube, so I really can't share some of that. But we're just seeing a significant demand in that area. We've adapted though, so all of our services are able to be provided online digitally, whether it's right from digital strategies and roadmaps to very complex programs and projects. We are successfully delivering those things remotely, which reduces the cost to clients around travel and whatnot. And so, yeah, so that's sort of what we're seeing here in Canada in general. We're seeing some growth in our membership. We're currently redeveloping our Essentials of Management Consulting course, which is part of our certification process, and very favorable feedback at this point on that. It's time for a refresh. And so we're seeing really good progress there. We're seeing the registrations for that be strong across Canada, because we do it online virtually. And so, yeah, we're seeing growth in Canada right now, which is good. Not a crazy amount of growth, and growth at an aggregate level does not mean growth for each and every certifying institute in Canada. So But so some of our certified institutes are doing better in terms of membership growth than others. But overall, Canada seems to be on a good trajectory. Although I know Donna would emphasize that we want that trajectory to be like a Canadian hockey stick. We want it to kind of
curve,
be
big curve.
up. So yeah, overall, things are good here, and we've been doing a lot more national events, digitally as well, just like Rima mentioned, and Jafar, you mentioned as well. We've been doing a lot more virtual events that are bringing people together across Canada, creating a greater sense of community across our certifying institutes, as well as within the institutes. And so it's nice to see that cross-pollination amongst our colleagues here in Canada. Yeah, so that's what I'd say. Yeah.
Okay,
No
thank you very
snow yet.
much, Chris. I really appreciate that. Thank you very much. So 2 speakers left. We'll go back across from the Americas, back over across the ocean to North Macedonia and then to the UK. So Dancho, you, and then we'll come to you, Peter.
Yeah, I'm still here. It's just that my little guy is moving up and down. He's still in the office, so I just turned off my camera completely. So, hi, everybody.
Hi.
The question was actually what's going on in Macedonia and in the management consulting. Well, actually quite a lot, but some good, some bad stuff. I mean, yesterday we had our Independence Day, so extended holiday for everybody. I mean, with the COVID situation, it's still the next wave came in. I mean, we disbanded our office. We are 28 people in our office. When it started, 500, 700, 1,000 new per day. I just said there's no point in waiting for the government to disband the offices. And I've realized that the government cannot do it because they don't have the money. At the end of the day, it's a trade-off between health and finance. So people still go to work, but majority of the people that can prefer to just switch completely online. Mm-hmm. And in Macedonia now we actually have the election. That's the latest, actually all the gossip, social media and everything. I mean, the local election should be in October. So that could also impact the climate because depends on who will be on. It's on a local level, not as a president, but in all municipalities it will be the elections. So as ICMCI does the meeting, also Macedonia is doing the elections and everything. So a lot of power plays in politics on that regards. And in regards to specifically to the management consulting, I've started noticing some interesting division between how it's called older consultants and younger consultants. I don't know in which one I should be considered. I'm probably in between because there are a lot of new blood. But I found it really interesting, Dwight, and I wanted to share it here that, you know, the old school consulting approach before the corona was everything has to be physical, face-to-face meeting. And when you're talking with bigger companies, certifications like CMC, MBA, Chartered Management Institute, PMP, I mean, the more, the merrier. Mm-hmm. And that how was consulting up to before the corona, and that's it. And now during this corona thing, it emerged that the informal, the younger generation, where they took a much simpler route. Self-proclaimed guru. From now on, I'm a consultant. I'm a management consultant from today. And I'm actually going to start self-proclaiming myself and talking about around social media and making as much noise as possible, either through webinars, videos, podcasts, ebooks, whatever possible. And I see now that as time passed, the fine line between the one and the other, it's even getting bigger. So I find it curious because bigger companies, of course, they understand the value of certification and accreditation, especially the bigger the company, the higher the risks for them. But when we're working for entrepreneurs, startups, small businesses, kind of the louder people, the informal self-proclaimed gurus are actually getting more traction because they figure out one small problem how to solve, whether it's in IT, whether it's in HR, whether it's in management or in processes. And they start doing online coaching, online training, online consulting, online everything. Mm-hmm. And I've realized now that if we want to grow as a consulting profession, we have to do both. Either old school, we have the certification, well, we need to figure out how to have online presence, or if we're purely online, we have to figure out how to do the certification. And when it comes to the CMC, there were some good progress in the last, now was the summer, but just before the summer, because we've managed to put the CMC as a prerequisite on several governmental tenders, which was a huge benefit for us because, you know, when you see it in a governmental municipality tender, that it gives not as a main criteria, but it gave 10 to 20% if you have a CMC certificate. We were like, okay, if we figure out the way how to continue this, then the demand for the certification will significantly rise, and rather than chasing people, would you like to get certificate, people will start chasing us, which is actually always the more attractive way of doing. So that's what's going on in Macedonia at the moment. We did had in June was the consulting day, management consultant day. Well, we actually called it the consulting month. So we actually did like video interview with management consultants, physical events. We did some webinars and panel discussions. So the whole month we had like, I don't know, 8 to 10 events, and it raised some noise for a difference because management consulting, I mean, we're 2 million people in total. So it's not like we're a huge market with vast opportunities. So our membership is currently at 30 people, but during that month, everybody felt that they're part of something, that something is trying to promote the profession, but it also trying to promote its members. So that was quite positive. And I think that we're going to do it at least 2 or 3 times per year, saying, you know what, well, there is a consulting day, but there could be a consulting month in June and then another one in December. It could be celebration management consulting in December. But with those events, they are cheap because they're free. We gather like this, we choose a topic and we can discuss. So it really helped in boosting the awareness.
Thank you very much, Dancho. That's very interesting. And your observations in terms of the profession are bang on. We're seeing that from 2 perspectives. There's no question that the profession of management consulting is in disruption, just as all professional services are in disruption. So if you think about how we've dealt with medical doctors in our own personal lives, we tend to self-diagnose a lot more than we ever did before.
Yeah,
of access to knowledge.
Google clients, just for the symptoms.
Exactly. So clients are doing exactly the same thing. They're self-diagnosing, and then when they finish that diagnosis, they go out to find the best expertise they can to find that particular problem. And where the issue is that the diagnosis might be at the symptomatic level and not the cause level. So that's the difference between that specialized expertise, the self-proclaimed guru who can solve one problem, and the management consultant who can get to the root cause. So we have our work cut out for us, because on the one hand, clients are more willing to reach out to people without certification if they think they can help them solve the problem. On the other hand, new entrants into the marketplace think less about becoming members of Institute because they have access to knowledge as well, and they feel that they can do exactly what you said. I can get online and I can create my visibility with this product. Or
that's why I called it self-proclaimed guru.
Self-proclaimed guru.
You put a red Ferrari behind you and you're like, well, if you want my lifestyle, buy my consulting services and I will help you get rich.
Yeah, exactly. I'll help you get rich. I always laugh at that, because if they really could get rich doing that, they wouldn't be trying to sell it online.
True. But anyway, I see it. First, I was looking at it in the US as a bigger trend, but now I'm seeing that, you know, even, don't get me wrong on the edges, but a 20-year-old kid just renting a car for one day just to have a nice photo shoot, and then saying, you know what, if you want my, and I know the people that they don't really have the depth as you said, right, whether you're solving a symptom or the actual problem. But from company's perspective, it's hard for them to choose who to believe, because from this kind of the street, we know what is what. But on the other hand, for them, it's like, I'm hurting, I just need help. Who should I trust in this case?
Right, exactly. Thank you, Dancho. Very much appreciated. So, Peter, over to you. How is everything in the UK? How are you doing?
Well, it's an interesting world at the moment. It's changing, of course. I mean, partly our own choice. I mean, we made a decision not to be so politically part of Europe. And now it's starting to become clearer that we're not, which is okay. But I mean, we've got, many of us in established businesses have lots of links and they still prevail. But if you're going to new players in Europe, it's a different veneer and a different game. And I don't think most Brits have come to terms with that yet. And I think that will limit people. And I mean, I've been a CMC for about 35, 40 years. I haven't made a decision yet whether to become chartered or not. I think a lot of the established and I was an associate partner of EY for a long time. So before I became my own practice. So, but I think the specialists are still doing very well. If you have a reputation in big data or in change management or whatever, and that pervades in your promotion, and people know where you are, and your other bodies in which you're members of or associated with as trade bodies or professional bodies. I mean, my deep specialism, I suppose, is marketing, but I was chairman of the Chartered Institute of Marketing. So, you know, it doesn't stop. You have to be a little smarter if you want to be a successful consultant taking a long-term view. I mean, but however, in my case, and I say I was the lead delegate for the UK until about a year ago. I think we're down to 3 delegates, aren't we now, Rima? We had 4, but I think now the numbers don't justify having that. We don't need, I mean, and getting them to turn up for these sort of meetings is very difficult. They don't, I don't know why, they don't like, they're not very clubbable. Although Brits traditionally were clubbable, but the younger side, those under 35 are less keen now in becoming, even getting together past presidents and past chairmen to get a room which could have 40 people in it, to get more than 6 or 8 is quite remarkable. So there's an unclubbable mode going on in the UK. The membership's holding up. I wouldn't say it's flying. It's fine. People are not sort of poor. They're not disappeared, but they're having very few real-time meetings. It's become very virtual, and the UK is really one big island or several clumped together islands with Scotland and Wales and the rest of the British Isles, and then Northern Ireland, which is slightly separate fragment. But I don't know, people are reluctant to travel. Conferences, interestingly, I've never found any problem in joining CMC colleague member countries. I joined one in February or March in Canada when I just logged on. They were very happy to receive me, and I don't think anyone was paying a fee. And I joined in, and it was fine. But it's obviously there's a common language, so it was quite easy. And no one, yeah, I mean, if there'd been a fee, I'd have paid a fee. But and we would accept residents from our memberships where we do have open meetings for members. So I mean, I don't think that should ever be a barrier for ICMCI. I think that the thing that the UK has not come to terms with, and I discussed this with you, Dwight, in the Bahamas, was that, you know, what will be the criticality of the chartered management consultant? How many people will want to do it? I don't see that being very strong. But, you know, it's not important to me now. I'll probably do it because it's not that difficult if you've done it forever. Why shouldn't you be chartered if you're certified? Because there's a certain cachet in the UK in chartered rather than certified, but that's a local patch. So, and I'm sure we would not, but I know there are working parties working on this. We don't want to encourage any degradation of the ICMCI model. We want people to use that as a starting way of becoming a consultant, and they go through certified, and they can become chartered if they want to. And there's no problem in that. But it's not a sort of must-have. It's not. I don't see them rushing and storming the doors down to do that. But I just say it seems to be a calm before tomorrow, and I'm sure COVID. I remember I am a scientist. I'm an epidemiologist as well, and I don't believe COVID is over yet. I'm sure that will be around for a while. And you know, all this travel, the travel rules seem to change all the time. The politicians try to do it to their advantage. and they play games. We have a very great game player in Boris Johnson as our Prime Minister. He's trained to do that, and it's not the easiest way to thrive and survive as a nation. But you can't stop him. That was obviously in his agenda. So I think, you know, it's steady as it goes. It doesn't surprise, no big shocks. I don't find any shocks. I just wish we could get more of our core players to want to conjoin in the bigger ICMCI family. And there's a certain resistance in doing it, but they resist doing that in their own games. So how do you change a habit?
Yeah, exactly. Thank you, Peter. I appreciate that. I see we're a few minutes over, and I apologize for that, but I just wanted to thank all for your comments. I think these are all very insightful, and taken together really do help paint a picture of what's changing around the world, and things that we need to come through together. And one of the big things that's reinforced to me is this idea of the affiliation of those who would be management consultants with institutes. So as institutes and as ICMCI supporting you, we really do need to think about what are the different ways in which we can involve people that aren't the formal ways that we have always traditionally thought of as, you know, become a member and then do all of the other things. So what are those forms of affiliation? Is it training in ISO? Is it taking other kinds of training? Is it simply becoming affiliated in a non-formal way? And I know you're doing some work on that in the UK in terms of the thinking of it as more of a community of consultants rather than an institute of consultants. So anyway, I'll leave that as the last word. I don't want to keep anyone past. I know I've already probably imposed on your time into your next hour's schedule. So thank you very much for coming together. Rima, can I impose on you to do our Dancho, if you could turn your camera on for a minute for our Smiling Faces social media post that for here. There we go. I'm sorry we missed two people who had to go on to their 11 o'clock or their noon appointments. So so thank you all. Smiling. Okay, thanks very much. And do pass on to your colleagues that this is available on YouTube if they want to catch themselves up. I appreciate it very much. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye bye.
Bye.